preface this by saying that more than it being a state of the foundation, this is really just giving a broad overview of some things that you may pick up a few nuggets here or there about the foundation that you didn't know until today. At least that's my goal. So let's get into it. We've already talked about many of these leaders. All of us have introduced ourselves. Of course, Robin isn't here today, but I know that a lot of you are involved in Media Scholars because of him, and because he had the foresight to bring you in. And thank you again for your support of the foundation for the past 13 years.
Poor tie choice on that day for me.
All right. So just a quick refresher here, in case you haven't heard this formally. The mission of the foundation is to engage with undergraduate students and connect young people with senior level executives like yourselves from major media companies, and to provide academic scholarships to students pursuing degrees in a variety of disciplines. However, we do tend to focus in the media and public policy realms. So in order to fulfill that mission, we really have two signature initiatives: the Media Scholars Program and the Media Fellows Program. But we expanded a little bit, took the opportunity in this virtual world to dabble in a virtual career fair as well. And so we had some success with that this year. So we're sort of expanding those programs as we go. This just gives you a little bit of an idea of the life cycle of our organization over the year. We really are heavily tied to the academic calendars. We follow what the students' needs are when they need to receive those scholarships. And so we have the Fall Media Fellows scholarships. Those are, students are applying for those by mid-July and receiving their award notifications in August, in time to receive those scholarships for the fall semester. These are entirely essay-based, and judges are really looking for content fit and also the highest need. And there's some truly inspiring stories that and alums that come out of this program. We do give preference to juniors and seniors, and these tend to be in the $1,500 range per scholarship. And right now we are distributing these twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring, and we give out about 25 to 30 at each of those two distributions. I did mention the virtual career fair. Andrea might want to jump in here and give a few more facts about this, but this was our inaugural year. Yet we had 35 candidates and 8 employers, and we managed to fill 57% of our meeting slots, which equated to 69 total student meetings that students had with employers. And Andrea, of course, followed up with everyone and really found there was high satisfaction from both candidates and employers, and an interest in, could this be continued, maybe even held more than once a year, and figuring out how to grow this aspect of what we provide to students. So then we have the Spring Media Fellows timetable in November and December. Those are for spring awards. And as I get a little bit more familiar with the schedule, and as we look at the ebb and flow and rhythm of things, one change we may consider in the future is collapsing these two distributions into a single distribution in the fall, and just award all 50 to 60 scholarships at that time to free us up to focus on some of these other things like the career fair and then Media Scholars Case Competition. That will be a heavy lift, and one thing that I can say for certain is we would definitely benefit from having additional judges to help read those entries. And so please do, as we go along here, write down things that sound interesting to you, because I know Ben is going to be surveying you eventually to find out where your key interest areas are. And then we have what really doesn't need an introduction to this group, the Media Scholars Case Competition. I have December to June here, but really we unveil the case in October of each year. most college students are like my own children. They wait until just before or on the February deadline to submit that. But we do start preparing them and having information sessions and just really, I've been amazed at all of the social media and blast email campaigns. Andrea really just did a great job of staying in front of them for months and reminding them to apply. This involves a qualifying round, which we typically get applications from about 25 to 30 teams. And we don't do a whole lot of distilling from that qualifying round down to the semifinalist round. That's sort of where the rubber meets the road in the semifinal round. And we will narrow it down from 25 teams at that time down to 6 finalists who will come to Washington, D.C., fingers crossed. COVID protocols continue the way that they're continuing. We will welcome 6 finalist teams to compete for the National Excellence in Media Award and $18,500 in scholarships during Media Scholars Week in DC. So that just sort of gives you a little bit of the rhythm of the organization. These are key dates for the Media Fellows program. So the Media Fellows program is really put to bed for the 2022 academic year. And so we're looking ahead to next school year already, with July 15th being the deadline to submit essays for the fall fellowship consideration. And then we'll announce those in August. And the next wave begins, as I mentioned, in November and December. Then for the media scholars, here's some key dates. We're coming right up to our February 4th qualifying round deadline. And those are all submitted online. We will very quickly turn around the list of semifinalists and announce those by February 11th. They'll receive an expanded case at that time, the semifinalists, and they'll have about a month to submit their final submission online, and then we'll announce those finalists on March 28th. And Media Scholars Week is planned for June 5th through 9th in Washington, D.C., with the awards ceremony on June 9th, 2022. So definitely mark your calendars now. So here's just a little glimpse. We have 16 teams registered as of this weekend, and those teams represent 11 different universities from all of these colleges and universities represented. So they are busy asking a lot of questions. We had great participation on an information Zoom that we held last week. It was my first one, so it seemed like a lot of questions to me, and certainly a group of very interested students. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what they end up submitting. And then here's just a glimpse of what Media Scholars Week will look like. So this is just a slightly condensed schedule over what we've offered in previous years. The students will arrive on Sunday. Obviously this is an all expenses paid trip to them, so they can really focus on their presentations. So we will make those flight reservations for them. We make the hotel reservations for them. We pair them up as needed in the hotel. And then we'll have the orientation for them on Sunday night. We fill and pack their days on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. I think this is again a place where a lot of you really lend value by opening up your places of business for these company visits and presentations. So we would love to hear from you if you are open to doing that this year, and also just letting us know what the protocols are, if there is anybody in the office, or when the best times are to visit. So it will be a little bit different putting that together this year. Ben's going to talk a little bit more about Wednesday night and some plans we have for you, but we do host a dinner for the students on Wednesday night. This is at a restaurant in Old Town, Alexandria, at Landini Brothers. And then we are, I know the media prom is legendary and epic. We are moving to a slightly, well, to a more conservative event in this time, as I think is appropriate, and as all agree is appropriate at this time. So we will still have the in-person case competition on Thursday. We will still have judging of that by independent judges. And then we will have an awards luncheon with about 100 guests are what we're anticipating for the students, and to really have those students have that interaction with the important industry folks in that room. So we have the Residence Inn Crystal City already lined up as the host hotel, and the awards luncheon will be at the Metropolitan Club in Washington, D.C. So now I get to turn it over to Andrea. This is my favorite part, is I get to hear a little bit about the inspiring stories that are behind all these applications. So Andrea, if you'll do the honors.
Oh, sure. This is my favorite part too. So, Kara, I can't believe all that you've already assimilated and oriented into the role. And it's just such a pleasure to have you and everybody here and to still be connected. But I want to tell you a little bit about the students. So throughout this presentation, you've seen pictures of students, and every one of them has a story. Some of them are really dramatic. Some of them are what you probably should expect, but may not know about student life at this point in time. I'm going to share with you a couple stories here. I met Fredlin. I had never met a Fredlin before. In fact, all of our judging is blind. So we don't know male, female. We have no idea of race. We don't know where they're from, anything like that. So when we have a final step in the Media Fellows scholarship process, which Media Fellows is our needs-based program, whereas Media Scholars is our merit-based program, we have a final call with those students to really just get to know them, also get a sense of the depth of their need, because we want to give as many scholarships as possible with that program to as many students as possible. But we tend to lean towards students that have the highest level of need and the best match for what we want to invest in terms of students entering the field of media. So I talked with Fredlin. I actually thought Fredlin was going to be a young lady when I talked to him. And to much of my surprise, Fredlin is an awesome young man. His parents were Haitian refugees to the United States. Neither of them had more education than middle school. This young man is the very definition of the American dream in action. And he is a junior at North Central College, which is in Illinois. He's a communication major. He has a beautiful French accent, actually, because he's from Haiti originally, learned to speak English in Haiti. And his goal was to be the first student in his family to graduate high school. And then once he did that, he wanted to be the first student in his family to graduate from college. And his ambition is to work in journalism. And he said to me at the end of our call, he said, ma'am, I just really want to thank you for taking time to talk with me today. And I really hope that you decide to give me this scholarship, but even if you don't, I'm going to make my dreams come true. And of course, the first thing I did was I walked right down to Ben's office and I was like, listen to this. And Ben said, give everything to him, because he was wonderful. So he did receive a scholarship, but such an inspiring story. And there's so many like that. I could talk to you about them all day. Here's another from Ashlyn Nichols, who is at the University of Mobile. She wants to work in broadcast journalism. She said she felt like as a student that she never knew what was true anymore, and that she really wanted to work in journalism and in in-depth reporting. She, because of financial pressures, and I hear this a lot from students, wanted to complete college more quickly than 4 years. She wanted to do it in 3.5 years, and she wanted to do it with internship experience too. To save money, she wanted to graduate more quickly, but she wanted the internship experience, but she couldn't access it because so many internships are unpaid. And so she was having to make the decision between, do I work or do I take an internship? And the work that she could get money doing, it was hard for her to find a match. And I hear this all the time with students. It's hard to find a match with my interest areas that pay, but I can't take an internship because I need it's not paid. So she actually started doing communications at her church, being the head communications person at her church. And fun fact, she was a tour guide at the Mark Twain Caves in Missouri. Didn't even know there was such a thing, but there are caves that go on and on and on in Missouri where she led tours. It's a state park. And she used those opportunities to exercise her communication muscle. Really outstanding young lady. She is interning at a Fox affiliate as we speak. And as a matter of fact, I think Fredlin also is at a Fox affiliate, or he was when we spoke at that time. Total coincidence, no bias, I promise. But that's just a taste of a couple of students.
Andrea, you can keep driving here.
Yeah, you bet. So over the years, we have had 507 students receive scholarships. Now, scholarships are a huge part of what we do. We give the bulk of the scholarship money to Media Fellow students. That's our need-based program. But we also invest in students in ways that aren't necessarily scholarship, like a traditional scholarship. That time that you spend with them during Media Scholars Week, the bringing them to Washington, developing that mentorship possibility, that framework where they can make connections, get jobs, get internships. That investment is about $375,000 over the past 13 years. We have 195 colleges and universities, from big, small, public, private. You've heard of them, you've never heard of them, where students are really seeking degrees that will ultimately get them into jobs that are part of the industry. Over $700,000, almost $800,000 in scholarships awarded, resulting in over $1 million in student investment since 2009. And that's because of you, and we thank you. So shall I keep going?
Yeah, right through this one, that'd be great.
So this year, this past year, we awarded 53 of those Media Fellows needs-based scholarships. With Media Scholars, typically we give to the winning team, the runner-up team, and the Mia Guyan Scholarship. And the Mia Guyan Scholarship, as you'll recall, is the scholarship that's dedicated in honor of a 2018, correct me, Ben, is that right, 2018?
I think so, that's right.
2018
That's right.
Media Scholar named Mia Guyan, who was part of the winning team who tragically passed. She made such a mark on the organization that we dedicated a scholarship in her honor that's awarded to the student, the individual student who possesses really high caliber presentation, professionalism, polish. But last year, we awarded 16 scholarships because our expenses were lower, because we didn't have our in-person events. We wanted to give more students more access to scholarships. So we awarded a really modest but gesture scholarship to all of the participants in Media Scholars last year. And in fact, we had such a strong team that we were able to award 2 Mia Guyan scholarships last year. Our fundraising goal for 2021 was $250,000, but we raised over that at just over $260,000 last year. It is a modest goal, but we wanted to just stay flat year over year, given that that big draw of the in-person event wasn't able to happen over the past 2 years. The real plus side on that is that over the past 2 years, we've been able to give students increased opportunity and access to media professionals with lower expenses. It's not something we want to do every year, but we've really made the most of a really tricky situation and been able to deliver on the mission in spite of the restrictions on bringing students in person. So in 2021, 380 students were touched by Media Scholars, the foundation. Me too.
Well, and obviously this is made possible through, and we need dozens of slides to fit all the names of the sponsors and supporters and partners who help out the foundation throughout the year. And but this is just a sampling of them. You can find our entire listing on our website at mediascholars.org/sponsors. But we're just so grateful to all of you, and thought it would be helpful just to give you a little bit of context of what the 5-year income history looks like. So we've had a little bit of up and downs here in terms of revenue, and I just want to point out a couple things that are impacting that. So 2019 was our highest revenue year for the past 5 years, and that was also, it coincides with the last time we had an in-person Media Scholars Week. And we do know that that in-person event and reception really is a draw, and we had ticket sales from that. So you're seeing a spike there in income. What's really remarkable is the next 2 years, which were 100% virtual, and we didn't have those in-person touches. And coming from another, a very broad nonprofit background, this was an extremely hard thing to do, was to maintain roughly the same amount of support. We know that's because of generous donors. But the other through line that's here, the blue line, is the number of donors who were giving to contribute to that revenue line. And so I want to point out here that even in your years where in the foundation's years where revenue is slightly less, we were raising that with literally almost half of the number of donors. So your net gift is increasing, and that's a great thing to see, and symbolizes a healthy organization, obviously. And then finally, there's a lot of newness to 2022, a lot of momentum. We are really excited to be going back in person. We have some new, fresh faces. We have this committee's help. All of these things are very exciting developments that we think we can project increased income of getting over the $300,000 mark. So that's just a little preview for you, or look back actually at the last 5 years. And I just want to maybe, I don't know, Ben, we can just even maybe stop here, or if you'd like me to have, I would actually hand it off to Andrea, who did a really thorough, I thought, SWOT analysis. And all of you, I think, are very savvy business people and are probably going to have some questions, but I think this slide helps address those. So if we can take maybe 60 seconds and go through it real quick, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, why don't you take about a minute to do that, and then if anybody has any questions about what they've seen, I think we address some questions, and then we can go on from there.
Great. Andrea, why don't you go ahead then?
Sure. Yeah. So in thinking about Washington Media Scholars' greatest strengths, I mean, our greatest strengths really are our history, our founding, and you. We are, really established in the industry. On the weakness side, our strength is also part of our weakness, right? We're so well known that we may be sort of, this is what I do every year, or we may sometimes be forgotten, especially in a year where we're not in person. We have a small bench of people to count on within the organization. And that single event is still something that people look to as the reason why to support. Our opportunities really lie in this idea of where we are as a country, where people are hiring and they want fresh talent, and we have a source of talent. We tapped into a little bit of that. We sort of toe dipped into that with the virtual career fair. We also have extraordinary storytelling opportunities about our students and our sponsors. And so there's a lot there that we have to work with. Moving forward, COVID is still a moving target. We don't know what that impact will have on us, our fundraising, our programs, and our support. We know that we have to stay in front of people to stay at top of mind. So that's something that's really, that we're going to have to continually stay fresh on. We don't want people to forget about us because we're not in front of them. The other thing is mergers and retirements, right? So our business is all about relationships, and as people come and go, that can impact their support for the organization. So that's in a nutshell. If there are any questions or adds on that, I'm happy to help field that.
Yeah, And I think we can just come back to this if we need to. Ben, I feel like we gave people a lot to digest there. And again, if there, maybe we pause just for a minute and find out if there are questions. Great. Well, that's a good sign.
Yeah, thanks. A lot of good information.
All right.
Stop recording.